Hi, and welcome to Dawn Dungeon Guides. Today we will be covering a run that most people make way more difficult than it actually is. This is Mythic Ara-Kara, City of Echoes. Ara-Kara, City of Echoes is located in the southern region of Azj-Kahet in the war within expansion zone Khazalgar. The City of Echoes dungeon run is actually located in the City of Threads, which occupies the southern region of Azj-Kahet. This is a simplified route for City of Echoes that, in my experience, will still double-star a keystone upgrade. Splitting the pulls like this is more likely to guarantee that trash is less spread out over the spacious beginning to the run, and throughout the run this route will ensure that trash mobs are not exceptionally interrupt-heavy. If you are with either a coordinated group of friends and or guild members, or even the rare pug-filled group of true Gamer Beast Mode Mythic Plus runners, then it is very possible to push for the triple chest timer by grouping the trash pulls as such. Following this route will require great coordination among the group, and each player being on top of their game, as this will 100% make the run much more dependent on not missing a mechanic or interrupt. The City of Echoes provides a dungeon buff for your group accessible by tailors with a Khazalgar tailoring skill of 25 or higher. The tailor is able to approach the discordant attendant mob and interact with it. The tailor selects the Pull Silk option and walks away, similar to the quest where we cleaned up the Ruby Dragon Shrine in early Dragonflight. Once successful, your tailor will be granted a holding thread buff that lasts 60 seconds. They can use it for a 13-second single-target stun on any enemy of your choice, including mini-bosses. Notable trash before the first boss are 1. Engorged Crawlers. These will cast venomous spit, an uninterruptible poison, that must be cured or dispelled. Use a defensive or health potion to help your healers until a cleanse can be cast on you. In addition, once they drop below 30% HP, they will begin the Toxic Rupture channel. This will be signified by a green ring around their feet. Any player caught within the area of effect when the Toxic Rupture goes off will most likely be dead unless they are overgeared. The Toxic Rupture can be stopped with a stun or crowd control effect, but once the effect wears off, the channel will begin again. Use stuns and crowd controls for Toxic Rupture channel cast, and tanks should also kite them during the channel cast, making sure to pay attention to group positioning so as not to kite the rupture through anybody's path. And 2. Trilling Attendant. The priority focus for this mob is to interrupt the Resonant Barrage cast. As a main tank, I will tend to just focus this mob to pick that interrupt myself to ensure it does not get missed, as it does pulsing AoE damage to the entire group. Any spare interrupts within the group should be used on Webbolt. Additionally, tanks must pay attention to a stacking bleed effect called Bleeding Jab, an attack done by the jabbing flyers. Finally, jabbing crawlers will be a sort of heal check on top of the rupture mechanic and barrage interrupts. Jabbing crawlers will attack random party members with ambush for heavy damage. There are also 3 mini-bosses in the entrance area before pulling Avanox. The first is Ixen. Ixen casts Horrifying Shrill, which will give the entire group a fear debuff if not interrupted. Horrifying Shrill should be the interrupt priority when fighting Ixen. Spare interrupts should be used on Webbolt cast. Ixen also will attack with a frontal aimed at the group called Web Spray. This will not only hurt again any player hit by it, but will also entrap them in webbing. The second mini-boss, Nact, is in the center section where Avanox will spawn. Use defensives when he casts Call of the Brood, as it does pulsing AoE damage to the entire group. He also needs Webbolt to be interrupted and does the Web Spray frontal. The final mini-boss is Attic and casts Poison Bolt, which must be interrupted. He will also drop a Poison Cloud, which is an area of effect that must be avoided. Attic also does the Web Spray frontal. The first boss we will pull is Avanox, a giant ugly spider. The first and biggest thing about Avanox to note is that once she is pulled, giant web sacks will appear somewhere in the area. Sometimes they spawn right near the boss, sometimes on the opposite side of the boss ring. These egg sacks fall into the group-wide mechanics for this boss. 1. Play defensive cooldowns when Avanox uses Alerting Shrill, a channel cast that does heavy pulsing AoE damage to the entire group. 2. Alerting Shrill will break the egg sacks, spawning Starved Crawler ads. These ads must be focused down ASAP, as they will focus a player at random, and they hurt. Additionally, if these ads get too close to the boss, Avanox will consume them and gain Insatiable, a stacking debuff which will almost guarantee a wipe. 2. Avanox will also channel Gossamer's Onslaught. During this channel, the group will take more pulsing AoE damage. Additionally, swirlies will appear on the ground beneath players' feet. The swirlies leave behind vile webbing, which will hurt and trap any player who either gets hit by the swirly or steps into the webbing it leaves behind. Vile webbing is easily managed with small, simple sidesteps and can even overlap each other when timed right with the sidestepping. Controlling where you walk controls where the webbing drops, and therefore controls how clean or messy the boss arena is throughout the fight. Tanks, be sure to use defensive cooldowns for the Voracious Bite Tank Buster and pay mind to boss's positioning. Melee heavy groups can rely on cleave damage for adds with a tank that is aware of boss to add distance, but is not a suggested tactic among pug-filled groups. Healers, keep in mind your cooldown heals for Alerting Shrill and be prepared to rapid cast during Gossamer Onslaught. And that covers Avinox. Significant trash between Avinox and the second boss gets summed up pretty quickly. Bloodworkers will charge random party members. The interrupt priority focus is Revolting Volley, cast by Bloodstained Webmage. The Revolting Volley applies a poison debuff to the entire group if it is not interrupted from mean damage over time. Any spare interrupts should be used for Webbolt. Hulking Bloodgourd is the mini-boss of the area. Avoid their frontal ability Impale, and use a defensive for Massive Slam, which does AoE damage and stuns the group. Finally, do not ever let the Sentry Stag Shells finish their Alerting Shrill channel cast. They will usually die with cleave damage as they do not have any significant HP, however utilize stuns and crowd controls to stop their channel. If Alerting Shrill goes off, it will summon any and all enemies in the area, including additional Bloodguards. Additionally, for tanks, Bloodstain Assistance Extraction Strike must be properly managed, or no amount of defensives and absorbs will help you. The second boss in the City of Echoes is a Nubsect. It can sometimes look and feel like a lot going on, but it really is not all that much. A player at random will be targeted with Ceaseless Swarm. Ceaseless Swarm creates swirlies on the ground that move and follow players at random. Use defensives for Infestation, which will drop the Ceaseless Swarm at the end of the cast. A Nubsect will move to the center of the room to channel Eye of the Swarm. Use defensives during this and say in the clear ring, as stepping out of it means certain death. Bloodstained Webmage adds will appear during the fight. Interrupt their silken restraints. The best way to handle these adds are to keep them in melee range of boss for cleave damage. A Nubsect will target a random player with Burrowing Charge. He will follow the charge immediately with the Frontal Impale. Avoid this frontal. Tanks, face the Impale frontal away from the group. It will always target you. Also, position Bloodstained Webmage for cleave damage with boss. Healers, be prepared to heavy focus players targeted with Infestation. Ceaseless Swarm will 100% happen during Eye of the Swarm. This is your heal check. And that covers boss number 2 plus trash for midsection City of Echoes. The only real things to note for the next section of trash is to focus Blood Overseer's Venom Volley for interrupt and to avoid their erupting webs, indicated by swirlies on the ground. Other than that, careful advancing with slash pulling the winged carriers. The best tactic for these flying trash mobs is to simply stack with melee range, as the winged carriers will attack a random party member with dashing strike, and they love leaving cleave range if they get the chance. Also, there is a single blood guard on the way to the final boss. Pools of black blood will trap players, which sucks for this trash but is an important mechanic for the final boss. Finally, we come to Kikatl the Harvester. This boss is quite simple in all reality, and truthfully takes minimal coordination. Each player simply takes a section of the arena for the main mechanic, healers centralized somewhere in range of the whole group. How your group positions this will 100% vary, although I have found tank positioning in the lower corners next to stairs to make it easiest on the group. Here's how it works. The boss will call erupting webs, indicated by swirlies on the ground that players should avoid being in. Dispel cultivated poisons, which is a debuff that will attach to every member of your party and send out rolling waves of poison according to the direction they are pointing once dispelled. Players hit by these waves will take massive damage. Adds will be randomly running around a ring, and players must kill them so they drop pools of black blood. At 100 energy, the boss will channel Singularity. During this channel, players must each get to their own individual black blood pool to root themselves in place. Players not rooted within a blood pool at the end of Singularity Channel will basically be one shot by the explosion. Death Knights can use their anti-magic shield as a damage immune, and either Death's Advance or Wraith Walk to cancel the pull-in. Similarly, Paladins can use their bubble to prevent damage immune and Charger to cancel the pull-in. A skilled mage or demon hunter is able to bypass this mechanic, also with Shimmer/Blink and Fell Rush by timing the respective ability with the end of the channel. Basically, the mage or demon hunter gets sucked in and uses Shimmer/Blink or Fell Rush at the end of the channel to bypass the explosion effect. After Singularity finishes its channel, any interrupt, stun, or crowd control will break the root effect on players. Be careful not to break the root too early, and Paladins be wary of your Freedom Blessing if it is talented to affect nearby party members also. Once the root is broken, Blood Blob adds will spawn in place of the pools. These adds are best dealt with by being brought to melee range and/or tank. Tanks be sure to pay mind to positioning for Poison's Dispel and Blob Aggro after Singularity Channel. Healers, your heal check is with a culminating Poison's Dispel. And that's it from Mythic Ara-Kara, City of Echoes. If you found this guide helpful, please like and subscribe.